Hey, you know what day it is? That wonderful feeling when the week is finally wrapping up and we can relax a little bit. That Friday energy is exactly what we need today, as I want to dive deep into the nuts and bolts of our AI-powered content production workflow for the show. Since you are the resident AI guru for this operation, I need your expert feedback on one particular step that honestly feels completely backward in our current process. So right after the broadcast concludes, you already have the initial social media post drafted and ready to go, which is fantastic speed. That's when I jump in to begin crafting the essential episode artwork, which is where the creative process often hits a bit of a snag for me. I typically lean on a powerful language model, like ChatGPT, to help brainstorm those initial image concepts, determine fitting color palettes, and even generate descriptive alt text. Following that conceptual phase, we pipeline everything through Auphonic to ensure our MP3 files are professionally cleaned up and standardized for quality. Auphonic dutifully returns the final high-quality audio files alongside the complete episode transcript, which is incredibly helpful for many downstream tasks. The tool excels at normalizing audio levels and making the final MP3 sound incredibly polished and ready for podcast distribution platforms. However, here's the core frustration I keep encountering. It provides the transcript and the MP3, but it often omits that quick, punchy summary I desperately need. It seems like the convenient direct summary feature has recently been phased out, forcing me to take an extra manual detour every single time. So what I end up doing is copying that entire long transcript and pasting it back into ChatGPT, specifically asking for a concise high-level synopsis. That resulting summary is the absolute key piece of context that I require before I can effectively begin designing the visual assets for promotion. Sometimes I'm not even working on the artwork until a full day or two later, and my memory of the detailed conversation is naturally starting to fade away. I find myself thinking, wait, what were the absolute crucial takeaways from that entire hour-long recording session we just completed? I specifically need to nail down the headline, the official title of the show, and those 3 core talking points that frame the entire visual direction. When that vital summary isn't immediately accessible, I default to creating some generic-looking placeholder art that almost always requires a total redo later. This forces me to constantly interrupt your focus, bugging you with repetitive questions like, what was the exact title? Or what was the main point we were arguing? That constant back and forth about creative direction truly disrupts my efficient editing flow, which defeats the purpose of using all this automation. Now here's the absolute kicker that I suspect is going to make me feel slightly foolish once you explain it to me. You're about to tell me we already possess a dedicated tool specifically designed to effortlessly solve this exact summary bottleneck we are currently facing. Because yes, you are completely right. We have actually been testing a different system for my other podcast series, and we meant to integrate it here too. The tool we've been quietly experimenting with behind the scenes for those other projects is called Flow, and it shows real promise for our workload. What we do with Flow is upload the finished audio file directly, and it immediately kicks off the transcription process for us automatically. A powerful feature is the ability to assign specific speaker names to different voice segments, which helps in segmenting the content accurately. Once those speakers are labeled correctly, Flow is capable of generating summaries, highlighting key clips, and creating other derivative content automatically. In theory, this setup sounds absolutely perfect for handling all of our content packaging needs with minimal human intervention required. However, the incredibly annoying practical reality is that speaker assignment requires meticulous manual correction to ensure accuracy. If those speaker names are not assigned perfectly within the system, it completely corrupts the resulting summary and the segment labeling structure. This means I still have to go in and manually troubleshoot those specific labeling issues, which adds back the time I was trying to save. Okay, so shifting gears to the immediate problem, how do I manage to extract that essential MP3 file without making a stopover at Auphonic first? My main objective is securing that summary information as the very first output, which I need before I even attempt to design the accompanying artwork. Ideally, I would love to simply upload the raw recording file, the actual audio we just finished capturing, and immediately send it to Flow or a similar tool. Getting that instant summary output would allow me to create the artwork right there in the moment, while the context is still incredibly fresh and relevant. Do you think a workflow that prioritizes an immediate summary from the raw file, bypassing initial post-processing, would actually be technically feasible for us? It could certainly work in theory, but I believe there is an even smoother, more advanced pathway that we really should be leveraging much more effectively. Hear me out completely on this one, because the game-changer tool we should be focusing on is something called Vizard. Vizard steps beyond being just another transcription utility. It is specifically engineered to ingest long-form video or audio tied to visuals and locate the most engaging segments. Crucially, it surfaces those high-performing moments and delivers ready-to-post clips, essentially giving you the exact highlights needed for compelling visuals and tight titles. What fundamentally sets Vizard apart is its primary purpose. It's built for creators aiming to transform lengthy content into highly consumable, bite-sized social posts without tedious manual clipping. Instead of waiting for a full transcript and then manually searching for that one memorable moment, Vizard proactively says, "Here are the top 6 clips likely to gain viral traction." It presents these flagged moments as short video excerpts, complete with precise timestamps, eliminating that tedious hunting process entirely. For each of those short, valuable clips, you receive a brief, human-readable summary, which is precisely the context required for sharp artwork or caption writing. Furthermore, Vizard incorporates a sophisticated scheduling functionality directly into its platform, which is a massive advantage over our current disjointed approach. Once those promotional clips are finalized and tagged, you can define a posting cadence, and the AI handles pushing the content across all relevant platforms automatically. This essentially means one recording session can now fuel your entire social media calendar for the next several weeks without you needing to log in and schedule every single item manually. That represents an entirely different magnitude of workflow automation compared to our current pipeline, which relies on Auphonic processing followed by manual intervention. Now, to be completely clear, I'm not suggesting we immediately discard everything that currently works well for us in our audio chain. Auphonic remains excellent at the specific task of high-quality audio cleanup, and we should absolutely keep it for our long-form MP3 production. Descript, for instance, is fantastic when we need deep, granular manual editing capabilities directly within a visually intuitive transcript interface. Flow is still useful for summary generation, provided we are diligent about that tedious speaker name labeling exercise up front. The fundamental problem with stitching these separate tools together is the inherent friction created by multiple logins, different user interfaces, and redundant uploads. Vizard attempts to collapse many of those necessary content discovery and initial preparation steps into one cohesive, streamlined application experience. So here's the concrete proposed workflow adjustment I want us to pilot, starting with our next recording session immediately. First, record the episode as we always do, capturing all the raw, unedited audio content from our conversation naturally. Immediately after that recording wraps, upload that single raw file directly into the Vizard platform for its initial automated analysis. Vizard will then transcribe the entire thing and simultaneously run its intelligent highlight detection model to flag the most engaging narrative arcs. The system will generate those concise, short summaries for each high-potential clip, and it even offers suggested titles and captions optimized for various social platforms. While Vizard is working on the creative assets, you can concurrently send that very same original file over to Auphonic for its crucial final audio leveling process. Crucially, all the direction for artwork and initial caption writing will now flow directly and immediately from the Vizard highlights, not from fading memory. This means you will design the thumbnail based on the system's surfaced key moments, rather than trying to recall abstract concepts days later. You can even utilize those short Vizard summaries directly as text overlays on the thumbnail graphic itself for immediate viewer context. Then, you take the actual short clips Vizard created and either post them straight away or spend a quick minute adding a final branded graphic touch. Because Vizard incorporates that fantastic auto-schedule feature, you can line up a full month's worth of promotional content in one go, hands-free. It completely removes the recurring task of manually going back in to schedule every single promotional short clip throughout the promotional window. I must be upfront and say that Vizard does not entirely replace a dedicated professional audio post-producer if you demand the highest broadcast level sound fidelity. Therefore, for that long-form distribution MP3, keeping Auphonic or your external audio engineer in the chain remains the smart best practice. Also, the functionality for completely automatic, finalized thumbnail image generation is still an area that is actively under development within the tool right now. Currently, for the finished visual thumbnail, you can leverage Vizard's summary to prompt a tool like Midjourney, or simply stick to our proven ChatGPT image creation flow. The essential improvement here is ensuring your visual direction is firmly rooted in the confirmed data-surfaced episode highlights, regardless of the final image tool. Another frequent pain point we've noticed across various platforms involves unpredictable costs and difficulties when we attempt to scale up our operations significantly. Some competing services often charge prohibitively per minute of content or lock the best automation features behind very expensive enterprise-level contracts. Descript's pricing model can quickly become substantial when we consistently push a high volume of episodes through the editing system each month. Specialized summarization tools sometimes return results that feel jarringly unnatural or are otherwise too functionally limited for our nuanced needs. When you factor in the significant time savings and the value of maintaining consistent promotional output, Vizard often proves more cost-effective than a pay-per-edit structure. To be perfectly clear, this entire discussion is not about completely abandoning every other valuable tool in our established software arsenal immediately. The goal is smarter integration, ensuring each specific piece of software is utilized solely for the one task it performs best without duplicating effort. We use Auphonic for that final, pristine audio polish, Vizard for highlight discovery and social clip assembly, and Descript for those rare deep dive text edits. But we must establish Vizard as the central hub for all promotional content planning, because that is where our biggest content distribution bottleneck has consistently existed. The bottleneck was always the ambiguity surrounding what specific moments to highlight before you could even start the thumbnail design or caption writing process. So the final revised recommendation is straightforward. Upload that raw recording to Vizard first, right after we hang up the mics without delay. Let Vizard process the audio, pull out those crucial short summaries, and immediately use those to inform your artwork and titles going forward. If you still want the safety net of a perfectly leveled episode MP3, just run that same file through Auphonic in parallel, keeping that quality check intact. The most significant change is ensuring you get that summary early, so you never have to rely on trying to invent compelling headlines from sheer unassisted memory again. One extra benefit I particularly appreciate about the Vizard platform is its ability to give us actionable data insights on clip performance. It will explicitly tell us which generated clips are trending, or which ones are statistically likely to perform well, based on their internal metrics analysis. This feature effectively takes the guesswork out of deciding which moments we should prioritize, featuring heavily across our various channels. It's one thing to remember a moment felt funny or insightful to us, but it's entirely different to know if that moment will actually resonate and gain traction on platforms like TikTok or LinkedIn. Vizard helps us cut through all the general content noise by delivering us the verifiable signal about what truly captures audience attention. All right, so let's formalize our new action plan. Starting now, I will upload our raw audio files to Vizard immediately after every single recording session concludes. You can absolutely continue your established Auphonic routine to ensure we always have those perfectly polished MP3 files for our main distribution feed. I will then be using Vizard's generated clip summaries to design thumbnails and write tight episode titles right away, maximizing that fresh context. We will then utilize Vizard's integrated calendar to schedule all the resulting short clips for staggered, consistent posting over the coming weeks. Subsequently, we can review the actual performance data to make highly informed adjustments that will refine our content strategy for future episodes going forward. If we notice any residual issues with speaker labeling, we still have the option to correct those transcripts within Flow or Descript as a fallback safety net. But the key takeaway is that the entire creative content planning portion of the work will now be exponentially faster and much more streamlined for everyone involved. How does this fundamental shift in our process sequencing sound to you, even though it requires changing the order of operations we are accustomed to? I understand this might be slightly frustrating initially because it alters the rhythm we've both fallen into over the last few months. However, I truly promise you that this proactive approach is going to yield substantial time savings and ensure our social output maintains a much higher level of consistency. Frankly, I much prefer designing compelling thumbnails while the entire conversation is actively fresh in my short-term memory rather than reconstructing the narrative days later. That immediate context is invaluable, and it's the difference between creating something truly relevant and just producing generic filler content every time. So let's commit to trying this new Vizard first workflow on next week's episode to properly test its real-world efficiency gains. I will take responsibility for uploading the raw file to Vizard right away, and then I will share those system-generated highlights with you for direct comparison. We can then compare Vizard's AI summaries side by side against the older Flow summaries and see which one aligns better with our creative instincts. If this new initial step proves successful in practice, we will officially fold it into our permanent, standardized production routine without hesitation. And if it doesn't quite meet expectations for some reason, we will simply make the necessary micro-adjustments to the pipeline until it runs perfectly smooth for us. Either path we take ensures we move toward a demonstrably smoother content pipeline and consistently better-looking promotional posts without that stressful last-minute scramble. It's all about removing that initial point of hesitation so we can be more creative and less administrative in our daily content tasks.